Thank you for being in Barcelona. I appreciate you coming, Tamia.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I met you 2 years ago at the Indie Meet, or Indie Wise in Las Vegas. And you and I quickly gelled.
Yeah, right.
And at the time I was doing another film related to domestic violence, which was Why Should I Care? And then now we have Toxic Love. So the last film was mine.
So Tamia, tell us, to everybody here, where is the idea coming from? I know you told me, but you need to tell them, because it's. I never expect you were.
Yes, don't tell them. I'll tell them. So I am a retired domestic violence detective. So I worked for years with victims of domestic violence. And in the movie, you saw me as the lawyer, the abogado. Abogada.
Abogada, yes.
in the story. And I just dealt with so many victims of domestic violence. Even since we've been here, since I climbed up the stairs and got here, 60 people worldwide have been affected by domestic violence. And we've lost at least 2 people in that same time period at the hands of someone who was supposed to love them.
That's great. Wow, that's deep, huh?
It hits home. You know, especially if you've had a family member or a loved one, or even you as a child maybe have experienced, some aggression between your parents or your parents and their partners, right? Because it's not necessarily, mom and dad that started out together. It might be stepdad or stepmom or, other influences within the family that are heavy-handed and abusive. And when you see abuse, sadly, as children, we always say, you know what, I would never do that. Many a child has said, I would never do what mom did to dad, or I would never do what dad did to mom. Yet, unfortunately, we learn by seeing. We hear what you say. We hear what you do, not what you say, right? So as children, if the mother was like, oh, it's okay, it's this, don't worry, it's fine, we still love each other. Well, here's my message to the world through all of my movies, is love is not abuse.
Wow.
You hear that? Love is not abuse.
That's true, huh?
It is so true, and unfortunately, men and women become the victim of domestic violence in what they perceive as a loving relationship, and they feel that they can save the other person or help the other person. I know he's a good man. I know she's a good woman. If I just stay with her a little longer, if I just put up with this a little longer, they will get better. But the truth is, without treatment, without going for help, without understanding that in fact you have a problem of being abusive, you're never going to change. Just like any other addiction or problem or challenge you have in your life, if you do not address it, it doesn't just go away. So this is something that, as a domestic violence detective, retiree, and as a filmmaker, this one that you just saw, Toxic Love, you see at the end it said to be continued. So it's actually a proof of concept for a feature film. Tell me this, did you like the characters? Did you want to know more about what's going on with each one?
Of course, but I love yours. Get that money.
$10,000 now. Yes, and this is the purpose for creating Toxic Love, was to, number one, get people interested in that topic. And I chose the characters on purpose because so often in our society, when we look at victims of domestic violence, they're often people of color. So when you look at a person of color and it comes to media coverage and social concern and things like that, people aren't necessarily concerned that someone of color has been battered, male or female. But let it happen to someone who is Caucasian. Then people care. You know, what happened to Sally Jones? They want to know. You know, what happened to Gabrielle Enriquez? People are like, who? What? So this is why I'm telling the story from that perspective. And you heard my character say, this is how wealthy people do it. But there's also a way that wealthy people do domestic violence.
That's right.
And it's because there's a price you pay for that position of wealth. You put up with a slap. You put up with a punch. You put up with being put down so that you can still wear your designer clothes and drive your nice cars and go to the nice country clubs because you don't want people to know what's really going on behind closed doors. And that's why I showed this couple, this perfect couple. We saw them, right? Beautiful home, you know, dining and whining and all that kind of stuff. And then what's really happening when she makes her husband a cup of coffee?
I don't want that.
Right? Right? The other thing about this is the reason I came up with the idea of her making that cup of coffee is that we trust our spouses, right? We trust our spouses to prepare food for us, you know, all kind of things we trust them with that could end our lives, right? And that's why I was so set on making that cup of coffee, you know, and watching him literally die in front of her, you know. And you think about that, if someone's a victim of domestic violence, what kind of dreams are going on in their head, right? On how to get out of that situation. So that's why I opened it with her in that dream state that we didn't realize. We thought, oh, she killed him, oh my goodness, right? And then instead, she went the legal route. So the goal is to give people options, you know, and realize that they don't have to stay in violent relationships and that there are ways to safely get out. But not just to get out, because in the feature story, we get him help. Because until he gets help, none of that situation changes. So I make sure to take care of both the abuser and the victim. Because until you do that, you can't even heal the next relationship. Because each one of them go on to another relationship. What do they carry with them? What they experienced in the past relationship. So this is why I'm telling this story. This is why I've written this story. And this is my goal in its education, to make sure that we can help both the victims and the abusers and all those affected by domestic violence.
Any questions for Tamia, the great filmmaker from Las Vegas?
So I guess coffee is no good, right?
If you're abusing your partner,
Yeah.
no type of food could be good.
Not tea either, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question. Do you ever feel like in Hollywood, sometimes they like to romanticize toxic relationships in certain films and things like that? Have you ever seen that in Hollywood?
That's an interesting question. And I can say that offhand, for me thinking right now, I can't think of one that I've seen romanticized.
Okay.
I can go back as far as maybe Casino. Remember Casino with, yeah, what was the blonde's name? I can't believe it. Yes, Sharon Stone.
Sharon Stone.
Something like that. And that was interesting that you brought that up, because that would bring me back to a toxic type of relationship where she was willing to do that because he was wealthy, kind of thing.
And Scarface.
Scarface.
Same, yes.
I was going to say that.
Yes.
Basically any mafia film.
Correct. Correct. Because the women know. You know, the women and the goombas, is that what they call them? What is the girls? The side girls? What are they called?
Bye.
They know, right? They know. That's their role.
I'm just curious because I feel like sometimes even in not mob films and stuff, I see it. I think there's the movie Suicide Squad. It's got the Joker and the
Yes. That's a
girl,
weird dynamic.
and
Yes.
he's just manipulating her, kind of abuses her, and it's very romanticized. So I feel like I still see it in Hollywood, and I just thought what your opinion was of that.
That's a really good question. And yeah, in Suicide Squad, that was the weirdest relationship ever. Because she was educated. She was a doctor, you know, and she ends up with this lunatic,
And
literally.
Still allowed him to kind of manipulate her. So I don't know, and I still think some people, especially younger viewers, might watch that and think like, that's hot or sexy or you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean,
Yeah.
yes. So I'm looking to actually illuminate more so that is not the norm.
Yeah.
And that both of them need help.
Yeah.
Both the person who stays and the person who abuses.
Well done, huh?
Was there a question there?
We were just going even further in depth with the romanticizing. We talked about Scarface and then what the symbolism of those films, especially the importance of, like in American culture, is you from America?
I'm from America, yes.
They don't assume.
Yeah.
And as young men at 13 to 18, we all are like, man, Scarface is awesome, Goodfellas, all those kind of movies, which cinematically they're pretty fucking awesome. But imagine the symbolism of Godfather and everything, and how the women's place in their role in those societies. So access to money and power,
Yes.
it means that women are really just part of the what do you call it? This no. Even more so. What I'm saying is they become an accessory.
Correct.
To your success.
Correct.
So,
Yes.
So we were just reinforcing this. I'm sorry.
No, awesome. Well, it adds to the dialogue, right? It adds to what we're talking about, and that is so true. And that is something that I want to change. The whole reason why I became a filmmaker had to do with how women are portrayed in Hollywood. It really did, and especially right after the #MeToo movement. Then I was like, okay, yeah, let me get on board, and then. I'm a woman of God, so I'm a person of faith, and I look to make sure my stories tell. You're not going to see a whole lot of Christianese in there, but you will hear a moral story, And my thing is women are supposed to be cherished, not used as symbols of whatever status and things such as that. So my goal is always to show the women how to be on that level and how to learn to. I'll go back to the Suicide Squad. Yeah. How to learn to love yourself enough, which actually they end up doing a subsequent story where it's all about her, right? Yeah. She finally gets empowered. And women need to hear that message because unfortunately a lot of women are oppressed in our society. And as you say, it's acceptable because they see it as just a way to go along to get along.
Round of applause to Tamia. Thank you so much, Tamia. Thank you for coming.